It tripled the sales for my friend. My friend did not even have a brand store. He didn't even have A+ content, and I tripled his sales. It changed his entire life. Like, he was about to go under. His business is like faltering.
Hey, Amazon seller. Wouldn't it be great if there was a super easy, inexpensive way to immediately increase your Amazon FBA sales by up to 300% or more? Yeah, sounds too good to be true, right? In this video, I'm joined by Amazon FBA seller and expert Stephen Pope, who's gonna break down his #1 strategy for helping Amazon sellers quickly and inexpensively increase their sales, and I bet it's going to surprise you. Now, the level of insight covered in this interview would normally cost hundreds of dollars in agency and consulting fees, which you're about to access for free. So be sure to watch the end, because I guarantee it's gonna be worth your time. I hope you're excited. Now let's get to the video.
For some of you, a familiar face. For some of you, a new face, but one that you should get to know. So I'm joined here with Stephen Pope, Amazon legend, one of the biggest influencers in the Amazon FBA space. He's helped thousands, if not tens of thousands of Amazon sellers ultimately increase profitability through increased click-through rate, conversion rate, SEO, Amazon PPC optimization, so much more, with the free content that you provided on your social channels, as well as with your agency, My Amazon Guy. So glad we finally were able to do this. Super excited for this. So Stephen, welcome to the channel.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
So today specifically, what we kind of talked about to cover are basically what would you say are the best ways or the best way for sellers to increase their Amazon sales? So one of the biggest questions, right, Amazon sellers have, how do I make more money? What would be your advice to that?
So if we were going to use the fruit analogy of watermelons, lowest hanging fruit, cantaloupes, and apples and oranges, by and far, there's so many things we could talk about, and I think Amazon sellers get overwhelmed. And so I think it is beneficial to bring it down to what is the easiest thing to pick up off the ground, and that's a watermelon, of course, right? And that watermelon in the Amazon selling game is click-through rate. So the ability to go in and improve your click-through rate on Amazon is the easiest, fastest, and most affordable way to grow sales on Amazon. I've been talking about this incessantly for about 3 years now, and it's basically 2024 is really the year that I feel like the selling community has really responded to the CTR message that I've been exposing. And I put it as the #1 SEO factor. And I now see CTR as equivalent to PPC and SEO in terms of strategy and things we need to invest in. And so you wouldn't spend $10,000 on a PPC campaign, set it up, and then never go optimize it, right? You wouldn't not adjust the bids. You wouldn't not go adjust the budget or play with the keyword or mess with the targeting, right? But that's exactly what 98% of sellers are doing right now with their main image on Amazon. And my belief system is that the main image you have more control, more ability to grow your sales from this one aspect about Amazon than anything else, by and large. A lot of people talk about how you always have to be launching products to grow your sales. And that's a great strategy. What's the challenge with that, though? It takes 6 months to launch a product. It takes a long ass time. And you need money and investment. That's why I love talking about click-through rate, because you don't need any investment. You just need a smart designer and a couple of A/B tests, and you're off to the races. And so today I'd love to talk a lot about that and break it down and what elements need to be in the main image to improve your click-through rate, and why this is the most profitable, fastest growth mechanism to sell on Amazon.
That sounds great. I know I've consumed some of your content, so I kind of know what you're leading into, but I especially love this because you mentioned like 2024 is kind of the first year that the Amazon community sort of started to adapt this. You're one of the first people I really heard honing in on this kind of topic of really focusing on click-through rate. And you have the whole ICAP sort of, not to get ahead because I know you're going to kind of share all that, but I think it's a great topic. So I'm excited to dive in. I know you tend to do a lot of things live, so we can go ahead and you can kind of show us what you've got.
Perfect. Okay, so if we're going to go on Amazon.com right now, and I'll share my screen for this to, I always like doing things live because, nobody wants to look at a PowerPoint and slides and decks and stuff like that, right? So when we look at this, I want you to pick the product. So you tell me, what is a random product on Amazon? Could be something you recently bought, could be something you were looking at. It doesn't matter, but you have to be the one that picks it.
It could be anything.
Anything.
All right, plant holder.
Plant holder.
Or indoor plant holder.
Indoor. We're going to add the word indoor.
Yeah, indoor plant holder.
Okay. All right. So
it's the first thing that I saw in this room, so that's what.
Sometimes I look around my desk, like, all right, what's on my desk? I got some floss here, got a tumbler. Yep. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Okay, so the reason why I like doing new examples is because I've personally never shopped for an indoor plant holder, and it brings me into a new category to think about this in a new way. So first observation, there's too many ads on Amazon. We get hit with a video ad, with a sponsored brand ad. We get hit with 4 ads at the top, yada, yada, right? We've all seen lots of ads. But as we start to scroll through this, I'm going to show you 3 rows of products, okay? So here's row 1, 4 ads in the first organic, second row, and third row. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to ask you to tell me which one would you click on and why.
There's a couple that jump out to me. Top row, middle, kind of so third in on either way, left or right, top row,
This one?
as well as, yeah.
Okay, so we'll click on that one. Okay, what else?
That one just kind of popped to me. And there was another one, it's probably because it was similar, but it was third row down, and I believe also in the middle, yeah. It looks like it might be just a variation, white, kind of there in the middle.
This one right there?
Yep.
So what made you click on these 2 products?
It's where my eye was drawn. This was very easy to focus in on, like a single kind of plant right there in the middle. The other one's like kind of on, yeah, right now on like the far right is very scattered. Now again, I know it kind of depends, right? Like depending on my intent, right? Knowing like I have my idea for interior design and like I have a specific idea that might kind of influence it. But just overall, if I'm just like, oh, I want something kind of cool and slick for my apartment, that's what jumped out at me, is the simplicity of it. By the way, I didn't realize how interactive this was going to be on my end, so it got kind of caught off guard, but I love it. I love it.
But that caught off guard, that raw feeling is authentic, right? And that's what I think people listening to this appreciate that more because they get to hear our thought process, the pauses, well, I'm not so sure. Let me think about that. Okay, so I love your observation about the simplicity because sometimes people put too many things in their main image. Now, that's counterintuitive to a lot of the things that I've been exposing for the past 3 years where I talk about more is better and being able to show accessories and tell me more about the product. But in the case of the plant category, it's overwhelming the amount of plants you're looking at, right? And that's the sense that I got from you when you were talking about this, is that there's just so much. You're like, frick, I just want one plant on my desk, just one, right? Something simple, right? Am I on the same page with you?
Oh yeah, 100%. In my mind, it's just a mess of like green, black, and white. That's all I'm seeing.
You might have also been interested in the material type, right? Was that something that also attracted you?
Yeah, exactly. Like kind of, it looked like, and I can't see it super well. You're probably going to be able to see it, people watching right now, a little bit more detail. But yeah, what it looked like to me, what it looks like, so don't make fun of me, but it looks like a more kind of ceramic in kind of that wood base.
Okay. And before we look at the title, right, do you know what kind of material this is? So don't cheat. Don't read the title.
Yeah, I promise I'm not reading the title. It looks like ceramic to me. Maybe it's plastic, though. Okay. It's a nice image where it looks kind of heavier, right? Like, what I can see. So that would be my guess, is a bit more like ceramic, but you can see it being like plastic.
Do you think that the wood and the plant box comes with it when you look at this image?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Yeah, not the plant itself, of course, but yeah, that 2 base, yes, I would assume that comes together.
Okay, so Bees and Buds plant stands. Now we're going to read the title. It stands for indoor plants, mid-century modern tall plant stand, 10-inch bamboo plot planter holder, flower planter holders, excluding plant pot. So the pot does not come with it, and it's just the holder, just this piece of wood there for $24. Wow. But this is an interesting exercise, right? Because showing you the finished product got you to the page. Now, you may not be purchasing this because you actually talked more about the pot than you did about the plant holder, which is, an interesting side note. But as we analyze this, the consumer makes their own opinion, whether the truth of the matter is separate, right? So the point of this exercise that we just went through here is that CTR is about perception. If we know the average conversion rate of a listing, and this is going to vary by category, but let's just say all categories combined together for this exercise, is 10%. So 10% conversion rate. Having clickbait or having perception of value to increase the amount of clicks to your listing while still, in essence, maintaining a 10% conversion rate regardless, that means the things that you put in your main image have more impact on your sales than almost anything else. Because you clicked this because it was simple, it was modern, it was sleek. Now, you may not have bought this particular product. You might be the 90% that just bails because it doesn't come with the plant holder. But you might also be the guy that says, I want to buy the plant holder too. Maybe they have it in their A+ content with a product grid. They don't. Here's another tip for you. You want to add value or increase your sales on Amazon. Include a product grid into A+ content. By the way, this month, brand new, Amazon announced that they are no longer going to allow 2 product grids. That means you can only have 1 product grid on Amazon. And just to make sure I demonstrate what is a product grid, just so we're all on the same page, I'm going to go over to some of these artisan soaps that I launched on Amazon with my daughter's face as the logo. If I scroll down at the bottom here, this is a product grid. What do we notice about product grids? Well, first of all, I can compare and contrast products. I can cross-sell. I can increase the amount of AOV that I'm selling. I can show price. I can show reviews. I can show who's it for, gender, quantity, size, what is it made of, what's the theme, what's the scent, natural ingredients, whatever, right? So there's a lot of things you can show. Also, brownie points, here's the bonus. I can also include alt text into the A+ content images. That was a side note to our CTR conversation. But what's interesting though, if we go back to the product here is you like the pot. So step 1, pick one of our gorgeous cylinder flower pots made from premium ceramic. But they don't give us a single link to any of their pots. There's no brand story on the page. This is a huge missed opportunity for bees and buds. Let's say they have 100 SKUs. They could have linked 100 different SKUs anywhere they wanted, right? So now I'm going to go over to the brand store. Luckily, they have a brand store, right? And they do have plant pots that probably look like what you're looking for. And if you were, the sort of consumer who wasn't put out by the fact this didn't include a pot, you might go track down the pot and try and find it. However, I am personally struggling to find the exact pot. In fact, when I click on the one that looked like yours, I'm not even getting to the right place. So Bees and Buds has lost the merchandising card, right? So when I talk about growing sales on Amazon, I talk about 2 categories and 3 subcategories under each category. So the 2 categories are traffic and conversion. I think people over-index on conversion, and so I focus 80% of my time on traffic. But when it comes to the conversion side, there are 3 subcategories: design, which we've been talking about here, including the main image; merchandising, which they failed here, full stop; and the third is often forgot about, and it's catalog troubleshooting, right? And so, I can't get my title to reflect correctly, or I need to change my brand name, or UPC change. And then on the traffic subcategories, it's PPC, SEO, and CTR. And I think people over-index on PPC, and they under-index on SEO and CTR, especially CTR. Now that we've gone through and kind of analyzed your shopping behavior for this plant, now I'm going to start to kind of backtrack and be like, okay, we couldn't find the pot. You were really invested in the pot. You didn't really care about the holder as much. You might have been frustrated. You might have come back. You clicked on their ad, by the way. It probably cost them $1. And then we come back to the search page, and he's frustrated because he didn't find what he was looking for. Maybe we go to the second listing, which is actually by a different brand. General 4-wood pop, what a weird name, wood plant stand. And in here, does the pot come with it? Rat and flower pot stand. Doesn't indicate whether the pot comes with it. But I bet you if we go down to the reviews, let's go to the original product real quick. I'm going to go to the reviews, and I want to see, does the pot come with it? Is that in? Customers say. Customers like the appearance, sturdiness, and ease of assembly of the product. They mention it looks great. Well made, easy to assemble. Some also say it's a great multi-use plant stand. Size is very how you adjust it. Customers also happy with the functionality, value for money, and felt pads. So no mention of frustration of pot not included, which is what I was kind of expecting to see. But if we go to the 1-star reviews, maybe don't have pictures with pots if it doesn't come with the 10-inch pot. Boom, right there, number 1. All right, now we've got it fit together, so to speak. Okay, so that's going to be a problem. That's why they had to adjust their title, right? And they're figuring their process out. So now that we've done kind of the real world example, now the question becomes, well, how do we make this better? And so when we look at the search page, the things that we're going to be looking for is what is everybody doing right now? Sometimes it makes sense to be part of the herd, right? So you don't get eaten as a zebra by the cheetah trying to chase you down in the safari. And other times it makes sense to not be part of the herd, so that you stand out and that you're more likely to find food and to forage, etc. There's the question of, should we stand out or stand in? And we're looking at plant stands today, so no pun intended. When we think about where our leafy greens are going to grow, I think one thing is obvious. If you don't show a plant and you're selling a plant stand, you're missing out, right? That's the first thing I can mention. So when we look at the list here in the search page, I'd say somewhere around 90% are showing a plant. What are your thoughts on that?
One thing I do is we'll look at like what are the most common types of indoor plants, or specifically what are the types for this specific size? Because there's like tiny succulents or there's like bigger. I'm like, you can't really see it on my screen, but I'm like, we're in an Airbnb in Zagreb, like Croatia. I'm surrounded by indoor plants right now, so that's why it came in my head. What we do is we always like mock up and like kind of compare with the existing options on Amazon with like a few different options. And then from there, our team will then use tools like PickFu or others to start like A/B testing prior to kind of like launch. Like out of our sort of selected, still like 5 to 8. Another thought that I have is there's certain plants that are like slightly off, like purple basil, or there's another, I have no idea what the name is, but it's like this purple viney plant. And I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, that could be something worth testing to kind of pop. So it's still a plant, but instead of all this green, at least for CTR maybe, is having that purple at least to test. And now again, like you said, that could turn people off. It's like, I'm not growing this, but maybe I have the purple plant as my main image. And my other images, I know likely what you're going to be growing in it. And I'll actually show you the versatility of it. So I'll have like a snake plant here, and then a golden pothos here, and then whatever, a areca palm in this photo of the same, assuming it like mixes. Plant. That's kind of how my mind starts going with this. But I would love to know.
Your plant knowledge right now. Yeah, I'm not worthy. You know a lot of plant names. We're scratching the surface here. We're talking about standing in or standing out as kind of an overarching principle, right? After we've addressed that, for some people, they're trying to choose what to launch. And the standout or stand-in framework can be used to decide, do I want to build something new that somebody else hasn't done? Do I want to stand in and just take some market share? But for most people listening to this, they've already launched their product and they're just trying to figure out how to grow it. And so I'll speak to them primarily today. And that is, what else can you do to fix your current main image? What else can you do to fix your current product? What I want to spend some time doing is talking about what to add or subtract in your main image. Actually, I was listening to a podcast about hiking. I just got back from Colombia, and I hiked 80 kilometers up to the Lost City and just had a fantastic time. Day one, I had a 50-pound pack, which was a mistake. Stupid me. Going uphill the whole time, and it rained incessantly. And so everything was wet. And so like there's no such thing as being dry in the Colombian jungle. There is only such a thing as like a level of dampness. But I was listening to a podcast today, and I've got the travel bug, and you're over in Croatia, which is cool, and I want to be traveling the world right now, but I'm not getting enough of it. Even though I just went for a week to Colombia, and I was only 10 days ago, I want to immediately go back out. I don't know if that resonates to you or some people listening, but like for sure. I am thinking about how to go back out. And so I'm listening to a podcast today about hiking, and I go through, and they were all over the place during the podcast, kind of like what I do here. Just randomly, the guy's like talking about how you bring too much stuff while you hike. And he's like, yeah, and then I listened to this book called Subtraction. And so I immediately pause the podcast. I go look at the book Subtraction, and the book is like academically backed about people are really good at adding things, but they're really bad at subtracting. So when we talked about plants in that initial intro, you were overwhelmed by multiple plants, and you wanted the simplicity, you wanted the one plant. And so there's some merit to subtraction in a main image. However, I think a lot of the times I spend more focus on adding things to the main image, and there's a reason for that. It's because people don't give enough information when they sell their product. And oftentimes when we look at a main image, we're like, what is it? If you were looking at this random product, would you know what it is if they didn't have a title? And most main images have a hard time passing that sniff test. And so if we were looking at a plant holder without a plant, would we know this is a plant holder right there? I don't know. Some people would say yes, some would say no. So now let's go through like what are the things that we need to add to a main image. So I'm going to go over to my website, and this is anybody who wants to track with me on some of these examples. It's at myamazonguy.com/img for image. And here's some before and after examples. So on the left, and I'll blow these up to make this kind of easy. On the left, we have a commodity product, but what is it? Do people understand what it is? On the right, it's a smudge stick, it's a 3-pack, and the packaging is branded. It's a subtle change. The only difference is packaging with or without. I think that 90% of the time, adding packaging is beneficial. Showcasing the packaging, which can allow some additions of keywords, can allow like the 3-pack aspect, so quantity can be displayed, scent can be displayed. So if we go back to my soap listing, Here's another good case example of this. So some of the things that we included on this main image, we show the soap in and out of the packaging, and we also show the ingredients that are raw off to the sides. And in some categories, this is a lot harder to get away with, and you may cause a suppression, but rest assured, every image suppression is very easy to cure. Takes less than 15 minutes to cure it. It's not going to cause a yank, anything like that. Suppressions are serious. You do want to take them serious. But if you're ever wondering, like, hey, is my main product suppressed? Just go to Amazon.com. You have to go to the actual Amazon.com proper to do this. Can't do it from a subcategory search. Type in the ASIN, hit enter, and if the product comes up organically, the ad doesn't count. Do you see how the organic listing showed up here, number 1? That means the listing is not suppressed. So I've just proven that this listing is not suppressed and it has bleeding ingredients across the main image, and we're getting away with the full gambit of main image things that some people think you can't do, but you actually can on Amazon. So packaging, in and outside of packaging. If you're selling a supplement, you got to show the pill. If you're showing something that has a scent or a flavor, you need to show the raw ingredient. And you need to show a keyword for what the product is. And this image here represents all of that. I'll show 2 more examples to drive the point home. So on the left, we have a baking cooking sheet, and there's nothing on it, right? Typical Chinese product, right? On the right, we have cooking baking sheets, 3-piece set. We even threw a little crease into the label right there and added cookies. So now, instead of selling baking sheets, we're now selling grandma's cookies. And you can smell the difference. The likelihood of somebody clicking on cookies is extraordinarily higher than to not click on cookies, because everybody likes cookies. Ironically, I don't eat cookies, but almost everybody else does. And even if you don't eat cookies, you still eat the memory of eating grandma's cookies.
Oh, 100%. No, and you can kind of see, you alluded to this earlier, but kind of the difference between a commoditized product and much more branded. Like, the quality feels so much higher, where this other one, it's like, this could be in any like industrial giant flea market just on the side, or like the same thing with like the smudge sticks. And then also I thought, and maybe I know you've made kind of full videos on this, and just kind of a thought that I had is like, if you identified this kind of like relevant keyword with like low title density, and let's say it was like cookie baking sheet, but like no one's kind of niching down for cookie, everyone's just general baking, and you're like, okay, so one of our listings is, let's say it's the same product, but one of our listings, we're going to like hone in on cookie. Then another one, we're going to hone in like brownie. Then another one, we're going to hone in on, and just like take the same product, make a few different listings, and like with SEO kind of hone in on like a few or even like one main kind of word with your imagery and everything. I don't know what your kind of thoughts are on that. That's just kind of where.
Full embrace, right? So as a case in point to hit your point home, I'm going to type into Amazon cat dog treat, okay? And I'm very firm on this, but anybody that puts both a cat and a dog onto the packaging, like NutriBites does right here, I think is losing out on 50% of growth in sales. Because nobody wants to feed their dog a cat treat, and nobody wants to feed their cat a dog treat. And clearly you can feed beef liver to both. Like, that's not the point. The point is that nobody wants to think about, this is a cat treat, I'm feeding my dog a cat treat. Like, nobody wants to think about that. And so somebody likes brownies, somebody likes cookies. If you want to double your sales but not have to sell more than one product, one of the easiest ways to do it is to duplicate the product, buy a different UPC code. This is definitely in the gray area of Amazon's policies, but it's definitely in the white area of Amazon's enforcement. So I like to delineate between the two because I think they're conflated frequently. They're like, everybody's like, Amazon's policies say X, Y, Z. I'll be honest. I don't give a shit what Amazon's policies say. Here's the framework that I follow as an agency owner, as an Amazon seller. Does it help the customer? If yes, do it. If no, don't. So does having a listing with cookies on it help the consumer? I think yes. Why? Because it helps the consumer understand how to use the product. As a random anecdote, I was once on a podcast with somebody who was selling the most bizarre item ever. And it was hummus ice cream. And he told me for like 11-minute monologue ensues. He's at a trade show and everybody comes up and just stares at his product, hummus ice cream. And one person after another. What do I do with it? And after the guy is like half a day at the trade show, just loses his shit and basically says, "For crying out loud, you eat it," and he like screams this at the top of your lungs, right? Right? You eat it. It's hummus ice cream. The point I'm making here is that it's not that consumers are dumb, and they are in many ways, but let's sidestep that. It's not about how dumb or smart a consumer is. It's that if you make it easier on consumers to understand your product, your sales are going to go up. So when Mr. Ice Cream Hummus Guy started including pictures of people eating it and started including recipes about, what sort of things or how you eat it, his sales skyrocketed. And just like brownie baking or cat and dog treats or plant holders, when we showcase what the product is, how to use it, and then here's the one we haven't hit yet, who is it for? Who is it for? So I'm going to show one more example that really demonstrates this next part very well. And so I'm going to go to my favorite example I've ever done. So this was for my friend Naz out of the UK, and his sales were so bad he couldn't afford to pay me. But I was in EO with him at the time, Entrepreneurs Organization, and I said, you know what, Naz, I just feel really bad for you. I'm going to do something free for you, and just let me do this for you. And I had to talk him into it, right? And I'm like, dude, tell you what, I'm gonna make this for free. And then I'm going to run an A/B test just to show you how much of a difference this could make for you. And then you can decide what you want to do. And he's like, fine, whatever. Okay, so I designed this. It won 96% of the vote. 96-4. How often do you run an A/B test or a pick food test and see a 96-4 result? All right.
No.
So on the left.
Never seen that.
Yeah. On the left, why would you buy this product? Ignoring you can't see the right product for now. Just give the first thing that comes out of your mind. Why would you buy the product on the left?
Happy me. First reason is because I like the color yellow. That's why I would buy it.
Yeah, that's it. That's usually like this. Like I don't usually get past the fact that it's yellow. Like that's how far we get usually when I ask this question. Now, same question. Product on the right.
Yeah, first thing comes to my mind, kids, because I see kids, the word. I see like kids drawings, like hello, whatever, and then age 6 to 12. So it's like in three ways, like within seconds, it's clearly for kids. Where the other one, I would maybe think for kids, but I'm like thinking kind of for me. But then I think it's kind of too childish for me. Like it's just kind of confusing. This one makes it much more like, oh, it's for kids in my mind.
Okay,
I mean,
now
because it's there.
For the consumers listening to this, did you feel the uncertainty on the first product answer that Sumner gave us? Like he wasn't really sure.
Yeah,
right?
Comment below. Yeah, with each of these two, we should comment below like what your thoughts are of like before, after, and if you felt I was totally off on anything, we'd love to hear that. So yeah, definitely.
No, you were spot on. And then on the second question, the certainty that Sumner had, immediately knew what the product was for, who it was for, what it was to be used to do, and the speed at which he answered. Now, use that same litmus test for your product. If you go show your main image to somebody, no title, don't show the price, don't show the reviews, and just show the main image and ask random people, especially people who don't know you, and said, what is this product? And if they can't answer in the first 3 seconds, preferably closer to like 1.5 seconds, you have a huge problem. Okay, so this fixes all of those problems. So we have age is addressed 6 to 12. We have kids continuation journal right smack dab on it, and we open up the journal and show like pictures inside of the journal so that somebody can understand like, oh, it's not just white pages inside. You can see inside of the journal. And then the last thing is that we blew the pixels up. We made it so it was bigger. Just making the product bigger sometimes can increase CTR as well. So I love this example. It tripled the sales for my friend. My friend did not even have a brand story, didn't even have A+ content, and I tripled his sales with one image change. It changed his entire life. Like he was about to go under, his business is like faltering. After I tripled his sales, I was like, hey, you want to start paying me and I'll do more work? And he's like, yeah, I do. And then he's been a customer ever since. So that's been, why I always start with a main image, and I think it's, extremely valuable to do so. I'll restate the hypothesis. Sometimes it's good to do that in the underview. The fastest way to grow sales on Amazon is to fix and update your main image. And the ways that we just discussed it were by adding things to the main image to make it more understandable, to understand who the product is for and why I should click on it. And any hesitation whatsoever will violate that concept and that principle and will tank your click-through rate.
Totally makes sense to me. And also, you kind of alluded to this as well, like kind of looking at obviously conversion rates, optimization is important as well as click-through rate, but the level of ease that you can, just like that example of changing the main image, and really not that difficult to do with one graphic designer, right? And the impact that can have versus the amount of effort you can put in to your conversion rate. And I always think about it as well like this. I don't know if this is helpful to anybody, but we do a fair amount of email marketing, and it's always like subject line versus body. Like the whole point of the subject line of an email is to get you to click to read the rest. So you could have like the best body, like the best written email on planet Earth, like the best sales copy or whatever. But like your subject line sucks or it's not even existent, let's say, and no one's clicking on your email. Well, actually, I'm sure in certain cases, not including a subject line, sometimes it's like a marketing like little hack to arouse curiosity. People are like, wait, what is this? That's kind of the same way. Or another example I gave recently to our audience was thinking about people like if you had a physical store. Because sometimes in the digital world, especially with you do a great job of like making things, this makes sense now. Like, I didn't think about it that way. Because like we're physical people in a physical world. So sometimes the digital world, even though it's like the same concepts, it's just like, I didn't really see it that way. It's harder to visualize. But think about like you have a physical store, let's say, like your Amazon listing, and people are walking outside and it's walking. But then you stick up some banners or some mannequins or something in the window, and all of a sudden people are like, whoa, what's this? Oh, what's that? And then start coming in to your store. And I kind of view it the same way of like tweaking it to where like people are just walking by scrolling on all these different listings. And what's going to really capture them to actually look at yours and actually, and like you said, kind of assuming, let's say the same conversion rate, let's just assume that. Same conversion rate, you immediately increase your click-through rate with all other things constant, your sales immediately increase. I actually love this topic. I think it's amazing. And I'm really glad that you brought this up and went into so much detail with it.
One of the other interesting factors is when you increase your click-through rate, what happens to conversion? It actually goes up. Every time it goes up. If your click-through rate goes up, your conversion goes up. This usually surprises people when they talk about it because they're like, if I have more traffic, won't less convert, or won't my initial base be stronger than the new visitors that wouldn't have clicked otherwise? And the answer is no. And that's because in marketing, it's the opposite of politics. In politics, you want to have this big tent. You want to have as many voters as possible, as many voting blocks. I want every group to vote for me, right? In marketing, the opposite is true. When you narrow the tent, your conversion goes up. When you only put cats on the cat treat designation on the main image, then cat owners, when they arrive there, their confidence increases that this is the product for them. Just like that kid's journal example, it increased the confidence that this was a kid's product versus an adult's product, and that allowed the conversion to go up. So it's not just going to affect your traffic. It will increase your conversion as well. But the difference on traffic is much more substantial, like 7x in comparison to the conversion improvements that you'll see.
Oh, totally. No, it makes sense. And it's always like, the engineering mindset versus like the marketer's mindset. Like, let's say an engineer, that type of mindset is like, well, you can feed this, whatever it was, like cow liver, let's say, to dogs and cats. So it just makes sense. You can feed it, and it's economical. You can feed it to both. The same people designing, let's say I look over at these Soviet buildings like I'm surrounded by, just these basic, bare, good enough, where the marketer is like, no, perception is reality. It's so important to us as human beings. So like, even though you have the same product, and it's always important to have obviously a good quality product, you're not just like fake, like, let me sell a Me Too product and, I'll use Steven's advice and Sumner's advice and I'll just do images great and A+ content and then I'll do well. It's like, of course, having that base is important, but the perception, it's something I see, especially new sellers like not doing, is getting into the mind of their customer. Literally like enter their body, look at those listings, and then really think through, why are they going to choose you over this? Why are they going to click on this over that? And I think one quick thing, I already know we've gone for quite some time and it's been awesome. When it comes to actual A/B testing that we alluded to of like, testing two different images, how do you kind of go about that? For both, let's say it's a new listing that's going to launch versus an existing listing.
So there's a lot of different ways you can A/B test, and you can test your product against a competitor. That's usually the most enlightening test for people. So whenever I work with bigger brands, I usually start with that because there's usually resistance to make changes at bigger brands. And so if you're listening to this and you've got a bigger brand or you've got a board or a partner who's just a stubborn, stuck in the past, start there, run a pick food test, costs you like $50, and you're going to test your product versus a competitor's to see which somebody would rather click on. The products that have easier to understand packaging, a bigger bold keyword, vibrant colors, sleek modern feels that have more information will typically win those tests. So if your product doesn't have those and you pick a competitor's that does, I can guarantee you who's going to win that most of the time. And then another test you can run is a change to your own product to see what's going to work better or not. I could show some tests that I've run for those that are curious. It's very easy to set up a test. You get results within an hour. I am a PickFu certified partner, but they're not paying me to say these things. I like to talk about products that I use. I use their product. Those are the things that I think are really valuable to do when you run tests. And let me show on my screen here to show a couple of these tests real quick. One of the things that I recently did was I tested my own homepage. So you could test the main image, you could test the homepage. I wanted to know how to display information. So this could be used for like a secondary image on Amazon. But having a circular graphic of the services that I provide outperformed, I guess you could call this a square graphic version, where I showed paid advertising, click-through rate, platform management, 76 to 24. I ran that test a couple of different ways because I really wanted to cement home. My design team changed my page without my consent, and I wanted to change it back. And so I had to go run a test to say, hey, go change it back. So even with me as a person on the image, it didn't matter. The circle still won. That's how impactful having that done. And then I ran a before and after of the service page, and this one was surprisingly much closer. But one of the standout things is people didn't really think that me saying I'm the 334th fastest growing company in the U.S. They thought that was tacky as hell, and so I removed that and blew up the circle graphic instead. You could test your own website. You could test a lot of different things. But as I scroll through on some past tests, let's see if I can find. I think I might go to my original ones because I remember those off the top of my head. But I was trying to figure out how to get my main image right for a mom box. I launched this mom box on the left here, sold $144,000 in 30 days. And it wasn't until I fixed the main image that it took off. So this is me, one of my variations that I came up with, and I tested it against the competitor, and he crushed me. I was 40, he was 60. And I was like, gosh, dang it. How do I fix it? So I ran another test where I just showed less. So here's subtraction, and it barely won 52-48. And I was like, frick, this isn't good enough yet. What else can I do? And I kept, running more tests to try and, figure that out. And so I had to figure out okay, I got to really structurally figure out this box for me to crush it. And of course, I can't find the poll off the fly here. But I know that once you fix the main image, sales take off. I lived it. When I fixed my main image for that mom box, I sold 50 units in 24 hours. Prior 7 days, I sold less than 7 units total. And the only change I made was the main image. I've also run tests for how to display the product, the difference between having it in a plus or a square sign. Square sign beat the plus. Who would think that would be such a substantial difference for the consumer, but it was. I've also run tests where I show packaging or not packaging. And on this podcast, I was a proponent of showing packaging, but just so you know, sometimes it doesn't make as much of a difference as I thought it would. In this case, it was 54-46, still worthy of doing, but not as impactful. And then here's a really interesting one. And this was, it's not very often you get a 90-10 poll, but here is one of them.
Oh, wow. Showcasing
it in with the keyword of the scent versus just showing the raw soap by itself. 90-10. People want that information. Right, so here's all various different tests that I've run to try and figure out how to grow sales, and it can make a massive difference.
Oh, 100%. And we've noticed that as well, kind of honing in, because we do a lot of that for main image. We're also big users of PickFu. I've actually tried using Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is what I used back in college and back when I worked in qualitative research, and PickFu results. I just think they do a much better job at filtering, but we use PickFu completely. And we do that, for main image, it's a big, and then also for the packaging itself. We've seen huge, and always kind of what we've been alluding to this whole time is a lot of times we think we know. Even with all your experience, Steve, I'm sure there's still times where you're surprised, you're really? Even though we're using, let's say, marketing best practices.
Yes.
And all of our experience and everything. And let's say we're better than the average person for sure. We have better insights or things like that than, let's say, just the average person with no marketing experience. But so many times, at least for me, that I'm totally wrong, or I'm this design, the orange one is so much better than this purple. And they're no, purple is what we want. Or this blue. I'm really? it's so worth testing. And a lot of new sellers, when they're looking at all the costs, are like, oh my gosh, launch costs and shipping and production and product research tool and all this stuff. I'm just not going to invest in this. And I always am like, it's very much worth it, especially because whatever hesitations that you have or any pain points that you have, other people are going to have. So you don't want to spend money, neither do your competitors. So that's great. So spend the money, or really invest the money. I think it's very much worth it.
The other thing too is sometimes the pick food test will send you in the wrong direction. So after you run the test and you implement it, if your sales go down, definitely revert. That's happened. It's very rare that happens, but it can as well. Earlier in the podcast, you mentioned my favorite acronym on Amazon, which was ICAP, I-C-A-P. So I just want to make sure I define that before we end here. And that is impressions, clicks, add to carts, purchases, ICAP. And when we talk about click-through rate, we're primarily focused on clicks. And that is part of the ICAP marketing funnel. And so when you get any one of these layers better, your overall sales go up. It increases your funnel. It increases the amount of people that are going through your marketing funnel. And the last thing I'll mention on ICAP is adding a specific keyword to the main image can make a massive difference. And here's a case study. When I added the word sage candles for cleansing house on one of my sage, smudge sticks, which by the way, it's not a candle, but that's what the data said to do. So I added the keyword in, and my impression share went from just under 3% to over 7%. My clicks went from 8% to 20% of all of the clicks for this one keyword, all of them. From my add to carts went from 9% to 21%. My purchases went from just under 7% to 18.7%. Just substantial gains. And so the only thing I did was add a keyword to the main image. And so for those that are like struggling to embrace adding a keyword to the main image as part of the click-through rate strategy, here's definitive proof. It can triple your market share at every level, not just the click level. But once you fix clicks, impressions go up. Doesn't make sense. Why? Well, because then Amazon gives you PPC at lower cost. Your ACoS goes down, therefore your ads go longer, you get more impressions. Oh, by the way, when your click share goes up, your SEO rankings improve. Therefore, it improves your SEO. You show up higher on the page. You get more clicks. Because of that, you get more impressions. Because of that, you get more add to carts, and you get more purchases. So all these four things link together. I'm a big fan of ICAP. Anybody can get access to this data by going to the Brand Analytics tab inside of the Search Query Performance Report inside of Seller Central. So check it out, guys.
Steven, I'm sure everyone's going to be in agreement here, but that has been fantastic. I know we've gone for quite some time, but this is amazing. I just hope everyone kind of sees the value that Steven's provided here, how much time you've taken. Because like I said, you've kind of consulted and helped through your agency. I mean, thousands of Amazon sellers. And the value you're providing here for free is just incredible. And by the way, it's already sparked a couple ideas. There's a couple products that we have, and especially with that journal, kind of like the slide out. And we've seen some of your videos and content before, but I'm literally like, after this, I had to hesitate not to write it down mid interview or mid video, but I'm like, because we do some of the other tactics as well, but I'm like, kind of showing some of those pages. All right, I'm writing this down. But anyway, this has been awesome. So Steven, for people who want to learn more kind of about you, I know you've got a YouTube channel, you've got an agency. So what's the best way for people to kind of learn more about you and get in touch with you?
I hang out on LinkedIn profusely. So add me on LinkedIn and then send me a DM or add a comment. And then YouTube, we are producing 2 videos a day on YouTube, which, if you combine the next top 10 competitors in the Amazon agency space, we have more videos than all of them combined. So if you're looking for a single place to learn how to sell on Amazon, it's a great resource. We hope you check that out. We also have a promo. So if you guys want to get 50% off a main image, just go to myamazonguy.com/IMG and then promo code CTR for 50% off. Normally it would cost $100. We'll do it for 50. And we'll hopefully triple your sales as well by just updating the main image. So hope you guys check that out.
Awesome. Well, Steven, thank you again. And yes, everything Steven just mentioned, we'll include links in the description section and comment section of this video to make everything as easy as possible. But this has been incredible. Like I said, I already have some homework to do with our team and go back. This has really been great, Steven. So thanks again for coming.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.